Welcome in, listeners. This is Margin Mavens, a podcast hosted by Steph and Kayla, where we share our thoughts on all things literature. Today's episode is about Boys with Sharp Teeth by Jenni Howell. We are following Marin as she lies her way into a fancy schmancy private school to find out what happened to her cousin Sam. The content for today's contains talk of violent death, drowning, self-harm. Please take care of yourselves and only listen if such topics do not make you uncomfortable. Now make sure to grab a snack and a drink unless you're driving, then remember 10 and 2 and come hang out with us while we dive in. Jenni.
Who hurt you? Who do we have to fight?
Somebody hurt her somewhere, and it became our problem. Oh my goodness. Okay, so from the beginning, right? What caused you to come up with this story? How did it sink its teeth into you that you knew this was what you wanted?
Well, this story has had quite a number of evolutions. The version that you read was its 13th draft, and 8 of those were complete rewrites. Because it's the book that I learned how to write a book on. This is actually the first book that I've ever successfully finished. But from the beginning, it was always a kind of an ode to the moment in Dorian Gray where Dorian lets Basil see his picture. And it's that moment of like complete vulnerability, expecting damnation to another person that you adore and that you know is probably the only person in the entire world that could potentially save you, but could also fully damn you. And that moment is one of my favorite moments in literature, and it is heartbreaking for me. But like the build up to that and the emotional angst of it and Dorian's deep need to be seen and his expectation of being damned is exactly like that's where the book came from. So it was actually started off as a retelling of Dorian Gray, where Marin, the main character, is James Vane, the sailor, hence her name, Jamie Vane, and Adrian Hargraves is Dorian Gray, and then Henry Wu is Henry Wooten. So that's where the names came from.
Yeah.
Do you teach English?
No. I am a nerd.
Yeah.
I've always really liked classic literature. I used to be a history teacher.
I knew there was some teacher. I felt it. The vibe was there.
Yes, I've had many jobs in my life, and teacher was probably one of my favorite ones. So I really enjoyed teaching history because it's it's just a bunch of crazy dead people running around. So
It's true.
Yeah, I currently teach English.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is why I was like, I feel like I know you. The vibe is there.
Teacher, soul calls to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never actually read Dorian Gray. I own it because it's on my goal list for this year.
Yeah.
And
Good.
now I'm definitely going to read it because this book hurt me in ways
Yeah.
that I was not fully expecting, right? So, premise of it is pretty simple, right? It draws you in pretty easily. Marin found out, or really she finds Sam's body, right? And she immediately clocks who she thinks did it, right? Nobody's listening to her. It becomes a tale of, oh, it was drugs. It had to have been drugs. We're good. And she's like, no, my cousin didn't do drugs. And so she lies her way into this fancy schmancy school, right? And immediately we meet the kind of cast of misfits, right? They're all kind of quirky in their own way. You've got Basil, who is, or Basil? Sorry, you said it earlier.
I say Basil, but you can say whatever you want.
We got Baz, right? And she
got Baz.
is doing tarot cards and she's kind of shy and she's got other things to her. Then we meet Henry and immediately everybody is kind of treating Henry like his own species. They're kind of just treating him like, oh, that's Henry. No one messes with him. He's so cool. We love him. And then we meet Graves, right, which is Adrian, and he's supposed to be this like really smart violin player, and he's immediately very cold, right? So it has the makings of everything that draws me in, right?
Correct. Can confirm.
And then we get to one of my favorite scenes pretty early on with the philosophy class,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm.
both, I think, as a teacher and as somebody that is also a nerd and loves learning things, I felt very seen on both ends because I'm like, oh, this teacher is getting so excited that they're understanding the concept. And
Yeah.
she's like, I have no idea what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Nothing about this is resonating with me. um, but there's so you have like a backdrop of, like I said, the fancy school. You have the
The dark
backdrop
the
of,
dark academia,
yeah,
which
you
you
have the
love.
we love a good dark academia. We've got this like ragtag team where you can obviously tell that Adrian and Henry are super close, right? They kind of draw towards each other kind of throughout the entire thing, right? What was a point of kind of, because you go said that you did all these rewrites and everything like that, what was something maybe like the hardest scene for you to have to like
Ooh.
get?
Ooh, the hardest scene to get. So, like, the hardest one to nail for
Yeah.
impact? Mm, that is an interesting question. I probably the first one, honestly. Those first set of chapters, and the biggest reason is when my editor bought the book, it had 10 chapters at the start where she's in Aberdeen and with Sam, and Sam is alive for the first several chapters and everything like that. And we have interactions with the boys through Sam and see her in the town and everything like that. And she bought the book, and the first edit she had me do was delete them all. And
Oh,
she said we need to show up at the school, and that's chapter one. And was to that point in my career the most difficult edit that I had ever done because
Mhm.
those felt very essential for me for understanding kind of this character and why she thought these things about her cousin's death and why she suspected them. And I had to really work hard to figure out, okay, how do I ground people in her suspicions and in
mhm.
her relationship with the school, but also with her town, um, without having those chapters. So my editor was, of course, right. She's a brilliant person that we need to just start when the action starts. But it was difficult
Yeah,
to lose all of that and find other places for it.
I think a lot of books, I mean, I think with a lot of readers, you can really tell whether you're gonna like really love that book within the first couple
First,
chapters. You know,
yeah.
if you don't
Hmm.
get them, right? Some people will like immediately just like DNF. Me as a chronic non DNFer,
Oh no.
I
Bless you.
am I am just immediately like, okay, I've hit 70% of this book and it still hasn't got me. But I'm here now. It almost
I've
becomes,
committed.
yeah, it almost becomes like a point of like, I've already spent this much time. I need to finish this book and see if there's
Mm,
any sort of redeeming thing, you know? And I
yes.
immediately, I think I spoke with Kayla Friday during my lunch break and I was like, hey, I started Boys with Sharp Teeth. I was like, there's some banger quotes in here.
There's so many.
And then Kayla actually today was like, I want to create like a whole graphic thing for our Instagram about these quotes. Like, there was just like some bangers. And I love when a book is good on its own
Yeah.
merit, right? But that you have these like standout quotes. And I think it really is just like the English teacher in me.
Especially the first one. The first one, which was hold on, I have to pull it up. I have it here. Mirrors are excellent liars. I was like, all right, bet. I'm
Yeah,
done.
I was like,
I'm in.
solid.
Let's go.
Lock in, everyone. It's gonna get bumpy.
It's like,
Um,
oh boy, we're starting off strong. Here we go.
Yay.
I yeah, I really loved it. I loved the like cast of people being very small, but you can still
Yes.
see kind of like the other people around them. Like you see that their lives are continuing. And I'm like, this must seem so crazy to everyone else that this like new girl comes in and she's immediately like the obsession of these like three people.
Yeah,
Right.
it's it's one of those things that only makes sense once you understand why. Like at
Hmm.
first, it feels a little too convenient,
Yeah.
um, but Marin is such an obsessive character, and she's so tunnel visioned on what she wants and what she needs, and has such a short time frame in which she can have it happen. That like no nothing else exists to her. and certainly not the other people at
Yeah.
the school. And so it's very difficult to broaden the book beyond
It's like
the main
tunnel vision.
cast she was
Yeah.
investigating. Yeah, because
Yeah.
she's just like nobody else exists. She's like, these are all copy and paste people. I can delete them from my life.
Yeah.
Um, so it was really, really interesting writing from her point of view because she just didn't give a shit about anybody
Mhm.
except for them. And when she slotted in so easily and naturally with them, she also just didn't question it because it was where she was meant to be. It was where she wanted to be. And of course, the boys have, well, I don't know if that's a spoiler, so I'm not going to say that yet.
They've got plans, you know?
They've
Yes,
got
Uh
there's
things.
reasons.
There's reasons.
I yeah, I think it's really cool because some authors I think might really struggle with having us feel as though we're really learning and seeing things through the eyes of that main character. And so it makes sense that I'm like, I have no idea what's going on with like the rest of these people. I couldn't tell
Yeah.
you like what are the age ranges of these people. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't tell you if there's other people in these classes. And it makes sense because she's immediately and she's given such a like tight deadline, right? That I almost felt her anxiety the entire time because I was like,
Yes.
wait, she's being told like you have 2 weeks until this check needs to clear and it's not
Yeah,
gonna clear.
no.
um and the headmistress I think is so interesting to me. She's almost like, hey, I'm having you do this thing, but then when you do this thing, I don't believe you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
um ugh.
It's really tough because you've through the book I felt like Marin was failed by a lot of adults in her life,
Mhm.
and then to have the headmistress that she was so sure, she was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna believe me, she's gonna listen to me, and then not have that happen.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking. I was
Mhm.
like, oh Marin, baby
Yeah.
Yeah.
girl,
Oh my goodness.
please.
Yeah,
Um,
that was a fun scene to write.
I'm sure, yeah. um, Speaking back onto the Dorian Gray and everything, what are some authors that you think really like inspired you into and kind of like morphed you into the writer that you are?
Oof. Well, Maggie Stiefvater for one.
The Raven Boys?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The Raven Boys was the first book that I read where I was like, "Oh, I want to do this. Like I want to learn how to write characters in prose like this."
Mhm.
And so I actually have taken a couple classes with her and done like an in-person retreat and everything and gotten critique from her. So she has helped refine um and essentially like help teach me to write. That's what it says in my acknowledgments, and it's there for a reason. Like I learned to write from that lady. So definitely Maggie. But also Holly Black. I am obsessed with Cardin Greenbrier and the his journey through The Cruel Prince. I
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
loved the way that his character starts off seeming one way and then just slowly unfolds. And I have worked to try and learn how to do that, how to like give someone an initial appearance, and then as you learn bit by bit by bit about who they are, your perception of them changes. So I love romances like that where it's always on the knife's edge, like all the way to the end of the book. There is not relief from the tension between the two because it drives me nuts when you have enemies to lovers and then it just about halfway through the book or two-thirds they're fine and it's lovey-dovey and I'm like, no, this isn't why I wanted this genre.
Yeah. Um, what are I guess both as a reader and as an author, what are some pet peeves that you think you have other than kind of segueing from that idea of enemies to lovers?
mm,
What are
mm.
some other things that just like immediate no from you?
Immediately no,
Yeah.
immediately no.
Yeah,
Men, no.
agreed.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Done. End the episode. That's it.
I think uh, I don't enjoy cliches. If a book is just the same book with different characters, then I nope out pretty quickly.
Yeah, the
But also,
romantasy genre really is making it
mm,
difficult right
Mhm.
now.
yes, yes, though some of them are really quite interesting still. Like I
Mhm.
feel like with
Mhm.
the reader burnout that's happening on the the grist mill of romantasy, I feel like we've had some really great titles lately. I just finished one, For No Mortal Creature by Kesha Chow, which isn't out yet, but I got the chance to read it because I'm blurbing it, and I was obsessed. And it's like it's a romantasy. It's kind of a Wuthering Heights retelling ish, and
Ooh.
oh,
Love Wuthering Heights.
she does the romantic
Mhm.
tension so well. It was really good. Um, but yeah, I I think that's my biggest one. It's just I don't like it. I love to be surprised. And I love when things feel very, very, very specific. Like they could only be happening to these characters at this time in this situation. And that's one of the reasons why I love Maggie Stiefvater's works, because I think she's fantastic at being incredibly specific. I also read a lot of adult fiction because I think adult tends to lean more into the specificity because you just get
Mhm.
more word count. And I love it when a novel feels like it's a real person talking to me, like in Demon Copperfield by Barbara Kingsolver. I read that over this past year, and it's like listening to a real person talk about his life in Appalachia, and I was obsessed with it. So when a book is just kind of bland on those and it's
Yeah.
relying on a sort of stereotypical source of tension and, um, rolled sleeves and smirking only,
Mm-hmm.
then
Mhm.
that's probably my pet peeve, and that's a thing that will get me to put down a book quickest.
Oh, to be able to put down a book.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that like?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
really
We
nice.
lock in. We're too stubborn.
right. Way too
If
stubborn.
if I cross past 50%, I'll finish the book every time. But I will
Mm,
do
Yeah.
enough with abandon at, before like the 100-page mark.
gotcha.
So,
I'm trying to be like you when I grow up.
Yeah, really.
Teach
hey,
me how to not waste my time on books I don't like.
that's why there's too many books to read. If I'm
Yeah.
not
There is.
enjoying what I'm
There
reading, then
is.
I need to put it down and find something else because there are,
There's so
gazillion other.
many.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Every day there's another book coming out, and every day
Yeah.
I'm like, that one sounds cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
That's a
know.
Uh
I need to
problem.
read The Hunger Games still. I haven't read that yet, so that's like on my TBR.
we
There's no
are actually this week reading
The ballad
Ballad of
of
Songbirds and
Songbird
Snakes
Oh.
because
Snakes.
we're getting ready for the sequel to come out in a
Oh,
couple
fantastic.
weeks. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, Hunger Games is one of my favorites. I talk about it with my kids all the
Amen.
time. So, talking of that small cast, who was your favorite?
Okay, who is my favorite in you gotta qualify that. To write?
Who was your
Mm,
favorite to write and who is your favorite overall?
okay. Um, okay. Well, my favorite to write is probably Marin, honestly. She is a drama queen and a
Yeah, she
half,
is.
and she's just a lot of fun to write because she will not relent. And it was really exciting to get into that headspace and explore her and her reactions to everything. She's incredibly intense. And that was a lot of fun. My favorite character is probably Henry
Mm.
because he's
Yeah.
batshit. And he's
He is.
just,
He's
he
the
was,
Mad Hatter. He's
He
yes.
just
is.
He does not have many boundaries at all, and he loves trying to figure out what other people's boundaries are and therefore how to, push past them.
Mhm.
So he's a menace, and he is my favorite character. He was often quite difficult to write because you have to make him make sense. You have to make him translate. Um, so that took me a lot of edits to work through his scenes, and even after the arc that you read, um, Henry continued to have edits through to the final version. So he's definitely the one that took me the most amount of time to get
solid. I'll
make sense
pick the
of
book up
things.
again.
Yeah. Honestly.
Yeah, some of Henry's dialogue like completely changed because like that does not make any sense.
There's high reread value in this
Yeah, because
book.
you get to
Hey.
see we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay.
Yeah.
Um so going in without spoilers and stuff, what is kind of like the feeling that you want your readers to have?
Ooh.
And does that feeling stay the same throughout the book? Or do you want it to be like you feel this here and then by the end you feel this?
Oh. Um, that is a really interesting question.
Thanks.
I would love if people felt Marin's obsession. I think that she lives so fully, and I would love it if people just felt lost within of her emotions. So obviously she feels mostly negative things. So I don't necessarily wish that on you. But just to feel caught up in someone else's tide and lose yourself within that would be an amazing thing to know that people are experiencing. I also want, like, near the end, I have always hoped that people would feel the pull towards grace and forgiveness that's there.
Mhm.
Like she has opportunities
Oh yeah.
to relent and to pursue like reconciliation and peace and actually like help people. And I would love for people to feel that dissonance between justice and wrath and then grace and that new day that could potentially happen.
I appreciate the little bundle of rage that
Yeah.
Marin is. I
So
Yeah.
really
angry.
do.
She's so angry all the
Like, let
time.
me live that life. Let me live
Yeah,
that
it can be so
rageful.
cathartic. Like just the
Yes.
reading female rage, when it's not just one note. I love it. Like I really
Yes.
enjoy it when a woman is unbridled. And um that's I think part of why she was so much fun to write.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Kayla, are there
Hmm.
anything that you want to talk about before we dive into spoilers?
Um, no. I think all I have are spoilery
Slay.
questions.
All right, listeners,
It's
past
your
this
one
point,
and only
it is
warning.
no man's land.
Yeah,
We are not held responsible for anything you hear after this if you have not read the book.
correct.
All right. So the mirrors. How?
I love this. I love this.
All right. So we get the backstory of Henry and Adrian,
Mhm.
right? One thing kind of jumping to the end, but one thing that hurt me. So I finished this book at, well, very late last night, and the daylight savings time made it later.
Yeah.
So I
Oh, that
looked at the time when I finished. It was like about to be 4 a.m, and I was like,
oh no!
wait.
Oh my god!
I was like, I didn't do that. That wasn't me. um, but one of the things that really, really hurts, right, is when Adrian finally is telling Marin why everything is happening,
Mm.
right? He's finally giving her some sort of information, stuff like that. And he is like, oh, it's because of this fire. It was my fault, yada, 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 right? And then we find out at the
Mm.
end that it wasn't. And the
Yeah.
fact that he dies with this knowledge of never knowing the truth. Who hurt you? What did Adrian do? You know?
Yeah.
Oh
His
my
friend
goodness. Did you
Was
know that that was what you were going to do? That, like, at the end,
yeah.
Henry was going to be the, like, no questions asked, you are the bad guy here?
Yes.
Solid.
Yes. Yeah. It took some tweaks. Everything always takes multiple revisions for me. But I always knew that in the end, it had all been Henry's fault. And that Adrian had been he was stuck in guilt from that. And I always have wanted Henry to be a manipulator. And he has had his fingers in Adrian's strings from the very beginning of it all. Now, neither one of them controlled what happened with the soul in the mirror. That's kind of like something that was outside of that Henry was not expecting when he caused the fire. It
Mhm.
was an added bonus, so to speak, that just kind of reinforced all of their already existing relationship patterns at that point. But it was again like it was inspired by the book is inspired by Dorian Gray.
Mm-hmm.
And so the
Right.
strings between Henry Wooten and Dorian are very strong in that. And at the
Mhm.
end of the book, Henry walks away completely free, despite his mentoring having sunk this young man's life through, you know, into the abyss because
Yeah.
he embraced everything so fully, and there's zero repercussions for Henry at all. And I really wanted to look at that through a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I was telling Kayla earlier, the entire book in like the best way possible felt like the first philosophy class
Mm-hmm.
where I
Mm-hmm.
was like,
I'm
I'm
so
kind of
glad you
just
read that.
fumbling my way through here.
Yes.
You know, like they're talking really deep things. They're talking, memento moris, and they're talking about this idea of death and what lingers and what is death and all of these things, right? But Henry really is just like the Mad Hatter, right?
Yeah.
Especially now that you point out that like his dialogue got tweaked after what we read,
Yeah.
because like his dialogue in this one, I'm like, what is this guy talking
he's
about
still
right now?
he's still very unhinged in the final version, and part of that is because he is speaking as someone who has already died and
Right.
who is struggling with these questions in a very personal way on, am I still alive, do I still count as a human, can I die again, like all of these things, and he's constantly on the brink of collapse. He's very dependent on Adrian, and it all has taken an already twisted boy and made him even worse. And now his
Mm-hmm.
greatest joy in life, but also what literally feeds him, is messing with other people's emotions and destroying them that way, and then feeding off that. And so he is not fully sane and does not care about that, but he is also deeply invested in questions about life and about death and about the barriers between the two, and he loves talking to people about that and figuring out what they think and pushing on those definitions for people who have only ever known the one.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Kayla, do you have a question? I don't want to
No,
monopolize.
it's okay. Was there ever a point while you were writing this that you were like, maybe Adrian doesn't have to die? Like maybe he just survives.
Maybe he's just traumatized and in jail, but like he's breathing.
So the very first draft, Adrian and Henry are the same person.
Oh.
Gotcha.
And so the very first draft of this story, he does the basically it was a demon, and so the demon
Mhm.
dies, and then Adrian goes to jail, and then Marin goes and picks him up from jail like 10 years later, and they drive off into the sunset.
As they should. That's my ending.
Their destruction of sunset. Yes. So that was like the very, very first draft of this story. And then every other draft since then, I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Demon. And he's an actual boy,
Yeah,
and his best friend. And so as soon as that shift happened, then no, he's always died. So
he's always died. Poor
yes,
Adrian.
Baz has not always died.
Yeah, that was rough.
That was.
That was
But
rough.
it felt appropriate.
Yeah.
Like it felt like the headmistress, like, okay, here are the consequences of your decision to not believe Jamie/Marin. Like,
Yeah, she did try to warn her.
yeah.
And it was all, I mean, it proves out who Henry is too.
Yeah, I think it's what Adrian
Absolutely.
needed,
Yeah.
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 to
He
be
would not
like,
have
she was
felt.
innocent. That was like his whole thing was like, Baz was innocent. Like, she didn't do anything.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And then when Marion spares her, but Henry does not, is the full, like, he can't cope with his decisions anymore. Not that he was coping great to begin with, but
was not. Was
No.
not.
No,
Zero coping
no.
mechanisms in this book found, guys.
Outside
Ah,
of alcohol and drugs.
and wrecking vehicles.
Yes, I love that scene. That's the
That's one of my favorites. Like
yeah, that
Marin
is,
is just like, bet. Okay,
yes,
fine.
yes. She's Henry finally met somebody who would push back on his
Yeah.
Yeah.
insanity. Everyone else just kind of
Let him
let
do
him
whatever.
say
Yeah.
whatever, and they're like, all
Yeah.
right, Henry's crazy, and would just let it roll on.
Hmm.
And Marin was like, no, let's see if you're lying. And
He
he loved
wasn't. Spoiler, he
No,
wasn't.
he was true. That was honest. Yeah.
yeah, he thought she was the best.
Some would probably say that the romance is between Marin and Adrian, but I see it more as like Adrian and Henry.
Mm.
Is there like an intention there? Is it all three? Is it all four if you include Baz?
Oh yeah, Baz. So Adrian and Henry are extremely codependent. They have never been romantic, but they are so thoroughly intertwined that there really is not like life outside of the other person for them. Um, so that's what it has always been for me. I could definitely see where the romance is read into that, because a lot of times codependency kind of feels, especially in a dark book,
Right.
can blur over that line.
Yes.
But for I not for neither boy was it ever romantic. Now
Gotcha.
with Baz, yeah, she's a really hard one, because I feel like there's a lot of Adrian, as I wrote him, that would have loved to be with someone like Baz, but he was so damaged long before he ever really became friends with her that that was not something that he ever let himself even imagine. And it
Hmm.
only kind of becomes a thing because of Marin, because he's trying to force Marin away. And so that's why he kisses Baz, is solely to try and get Marin to shut him off completely, and not because of Baz herself. But of course, Baz has been in love with him for
Forever.
Ages.
years.
Uh,
That that was so sad.
Poor
I
Baz,
It
man.
was so sad.
I am a romance girly,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so Kayla finished this book before me, and she was like, "I'm so excited to see how
Yeah.
you feel
Yeah.
at the end of this," right? Because the entire time I'm rooting for Graves and Marin,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
I'm like, Henry is crazy. He's not putting these words in this book.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
like he's not doing that. He would have used it very early on to let her know, "Hey, this was me."
Yeah. Be able to hold it
And
back in.
all of these things, but speaking of kind of like the romance intricacies and everything, we obviously see Henry and Marin, and then we see Adrian and Marin, right? Is
Mhm.
what Henry feels for Marin real? Or is it just because he's found someone that doesn't let him get away with his crap?
Um, do you mean like real love?
I
Or like
guess.
real affection, I guess.
It is real entertainment,
Yeah.
Yes.
is what it is. That's in this book. Now I can't speak to if there was ever a sequel. But in this book, he is genuinely interested and entertained by Marin in a way that he has not been by anybody else. So she kind of lights a spark for him. Um, and he is genuinely fascinated by her and really enjoys toying with her. And
The closest he
that's where
gets
it
to
is for
love.
him.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's it, and that really is, yeah, I don't think he's necessarily in this book, he's not capable of love. The person he loves most is Adrian. You know, that's
Hmm.
his guy. Like that's his best friend. That's the person that he needs to hold
Yeah.
him up, and he
Right.
wants to hold him up. So when he, yeah,
I'm glad you said that. So moving on into when
Here we
Adrian
go.
decides that he's the one that needs to die, right? Like he has this moment, Marin and him are both like, okay, we know what's going to be like the closest we get to justice, right? Is Henry goes to jail and I die.
hmm
The dance scene, man.
I love that scene so
It's a good
much.
scene.
It's a great scene. And the fact that I want to say she has this like incredible amount of character growth in that one moment, because she has this realization of like, there is something bigger than justice, right?
hmm
Like she kind of has that moment of like, I may be letting Sam down by not doing what needs to be necessary, right? But I need Adrian, right? She's like, I never planned for this, whatever. And then he does it for her. Oh, broke my heart. It was
So
not a good time for me to be awake in this world. Um, and so the fact that he does all of that, right? And then Marin and Henry have this kind of like final showdown, right? And she tells Henry, like, if you get him out, they might be able to save him,
hmm
right? And Henry still chooses not to. Ugh, he's the worst. He's the
he
worst.
he would have had to sacrifice himself for
Right.
that to happen. She was going to break the mirror. Um, and he, when put to it, he couldn't do it. He could not choose Adrian over himself. He chose, vengeance, which is why he and Marin end up together at the end. They kind of deserve
Right.
each other, and as much as she ends up with
Mhm.
anybody, she's got a pen pal now.
Yeah, she
And a
does.
person to suck from, I guess.
Yeah.
Suck life from. They're in
Yeah,
such a
she's like, "We could do this together?"
Yeah.
yeah. He is very happy to be on the other side of that. Um, but yeah,
That was rough. That was rough for me.
that last that scene, you're right. That is where, because that's when she finally sees all of the chances that she had to turn away from her course, and she didn't. And she finally sees what the opposite ending was.
Mhm.
Because this whole time she's just been heading, in the one direction, and she's seen the turnoffs, she's seen the chances to change her mind, to leave, to, forgive, to with all the different options that
Yeah,
she had.
to
She's
just
seen
be
it.
with Adrian and be happy,
Yes.
like
Yeah, or just to be with Baz even. Like she
Yeah.
could have gone off with her bestie Baz into the sunset and been like, let's go to college, and make new lives. That was also
Mhm.
an option, but she could just left both boys behind. That moment with Adrian when she's finally at the moment of consequence, where she sees, like, this is what I've been heading towards, this moment right here, and I'm getting what I wanted, and she finally can see clearly everything that she's leaving behind, and has to face it and realizes what she's done and lost, doesn't want to do it anymore. But it was far too late by then.
yeah,
And I wanted that, like, I wanted it to feel too late, because there's so many books where that kind of scorched earth, I will hurt the ones that have hurt
Yeah.
me,
Last
is
minute rescue.
celebrated. Or either there's a last minute reversal and, like, we're not going to do it anymore, and then you kind of ride off into the sunset. It's like, oh, well, what was the book for? I
Right.
thought we were going to do this. That's cheap for the readers. We had to do what we set out to do. Or it's celebrated and it feels good and everybody's happy at the end because we got what we wanted. We got our revenge. We hurt the ones that hurt us. And I wanted to talk against that, because I've seen a lot of it, especially in, like, young adult fantasy. But I also wanted to not do the other, where we don't get the revenge that we've been running for.
I'm still stuck on the fact that Adrian didn't know that Henry caused literally everything. That really hurts. And like the headmistress now has to live with knowing that she very clearly had a chance to do something. And instead she
Yep.
called the girl that was trying to save her daughter's life a lunatic.
Yes.
Oh,
It's a
man.
pretty dark book. Like,
It's very
It's
but
dark.
not in a bad way.
Yeah.
It's
Enjoyed
very
it.
satisfying.
Yeah, it
It's
all
like
makes
satisfyingly
sense.
dark.
Yeah, it all makes sense. It just, man, it is not a book you read if you want to feel good at the end, Like if you want to feel happy.
it is kind of a wump at the end.
Yeah, it's like
If
you got sucker punched and you
Yeah,
asked
if you
for it.
want to get slapped in the face without actually getting slapped in the face, this is the book for you.
This is the
Uh-huh.
book.
I've always
Man.
wanted to write a book where people want to throw it across the room in the good way,
Yes.
when they were done with it, because I feel like a book should make you feel something.
Right.
That is one of the things when I finish a book and I'm like, oh, well, that was a book. It's just a little disappointing. I love books where I feel deeply at the end of it. Sometimes great joy, sometimes the opposite.
Right.
And I wanted to write a book. I always want my books to make people feel intensely, even if it's not necessarily pleasant.
Yeah. In my
Yeah.
head, Adrian and Marin go off into the sunset in 10
That's great.
years.
I started in fanfic. That was, like, the first writing that I did was in fanfic, and so, like, go off on
Yeah.
the alt endings. I would
Yes.
love to see some of that where everybody's happy.
Yeah.
That'd
That's what I'm gonna do. That's gonna be my hobby on
be
the side. Is it's just gonna be stuff
Just set
from
up a
Margin
Patreon.
Mavens.
Yes.
Set up a Patreon, a side hustle of like, here, you pay me this much money a
I'll
month,
write
and
you a
I
happy
will.
ending based
I'll
on your
write you a
character.
happy
I
ending
got
every
you.
time.
That could be my bonus material for the international pre-orders. Like,
Yeah.
happy ending.
Yeah, because
I'll
oh
give it
my
away that I
goodness.
can't do that.
Okay,
It's
so
not-
speaking on this is where we start talking more about kind of like the future and everything.
Mm.
What you got going on?
Well, I am working hard on a edits for my next book that comes out in 2026.
Nice.
And it has been a lot of fun. It's definitely more romantic, a lot more romantic than
But is it
Boys
happy,
Sharp
Jenny?
Teeth. It's romantic. I can't tell you if it's a happy ending or not, because that would be a spoiler. You have to read it, not knowing if you're going
Yeah.
to experience great pain or joy at the end. Maybe both. Maybe both. So I am in the middle of that, and it's like, think about like if Hannibal meets Addie LaRue.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Done. Bet.
we're running down that path pretty hard. So
I'm here for it.
Nice.
I'm having fun, but I've got a couple more passes to do on that one. So right now I'm just making the plot and the characters um make sense, because it's a very different book than Boys with Sharp Teeth. Boys with Sharp Teeth was so controlled by who Marin is as a character.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one feels very, very different. It's multiple point of view. It still has the same, like, there's some jumping back and forth in time, um, and whatnot, like I did with Adrian's interludes. This one has some interludes that kind of muck about a bit, but it is a very different book from Boys with Sharp Teeth, while still hopefully being very emotionally intense and a lot of fun to read. It's really fun to write. So that's my big one that I'm working on.
What's your writing process look like?
Mm. So it is. My editor said that I have to write it wrong several times before I can write it right, and she is correct. In fact, so I start off with the vibes. I always start with, how do I want a book to feel, and then from there I build out into premise and character, and then plot and magic system and everything like that. But no matter how hard I work on those things, the first several times that I write it, it just makes no sense. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. But I get closer every single time. And so it's a lot of building something and then burning it all to the ground. And then I build it on the ashes, and then we burn it all to the ground. And through it, you just find the story's bones. I've known the heart from the beginning. It's always had the same heart, but I'm looking for the correct skeleton for it. So once I find that, then it's a series of just doing revision passes. Like I said, right now I'm working on the character and the plot pass, and the plot will stay the same after this, but the character continues to deepen each time I go through, and the prose comes last. Once I've got it all set, then I start to play with the words, because that's fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that
Uh,
like the treat at the end of your process? Is like
Yeah,
the
pretty
prose
much.
part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, let me throw in the banger quotes now. They won't see what's coming. When it comes to that, like, writing process, right? Are
Mhm.
you a fully digital girly? Do you do like
Mhm.
planning by hand and then go into digital? What's that
Do
vibe?
you
Because I've
Charlie
seen,
Day it with like a mind map and
yeah, because
yarn?
I've seen some people where they write. We were just talking about this with a different author, but they write the entire thing by hand.
Mhm.
That's
Aaron A. Crane
crazy.
does that.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
crazy in
Yes,
like the
I
best way possible, because that's such a determination type thing, and you really got to commit to what you're writing in terms of it being like, I'm not going back and changing it because that's going to mess up everything, you
I
know?
think that that's part of the point when people do that, is it's freeing in a way, because you cannot go back and rework the things that you have already written. You just need to keep moving forward. For me, I cannot handwrite as fast as I think. I can't keep up with myself. I can type as fast as I think, because I type very fast, but if I try to handwrite a draft, it's just, I can't read it afterwards. So it looks like a heartbeat. Um, so that is why I have never, I'll do it if I get stuck on a scene and I don't know where to go. Then I turn to the journal, because it unblocks that need for perfectionism. But beyond that, I don't handwrite the drafts. I do handwrite all of the planning and the daydreaming and the characters and the magic system. I handwrite all of my research. I write questions to myself constantly in a journal, and then I'll answer them, and then I'll answer them again, and then I'll answer them again, and then again and again and again, until I actually find the right answer. So I usually have at least one, if not several, handwritten journals for each book, which actually this one that I'm working on, I lost my journal in New Orleans. I was like just a couple pages from finishing it and filling the whole thing out, and I left it in New Orleans when I went to go visit, and so it's just gone. Which is fine. It is what it is. So we just had to
It's
start it.
devastating.
Yeah,
We're
no,
gonna
that's
be
very
devastating. I was
sad.
like, you're saying it's fine. And
I mean,
I'm over here like, man, I'd be
I'm very.
flying back to New Orleans scouring.
Have you been to New Orleans? Because one does not scour. That's it. Journal's probably in the trash by now. It's probably been stepped on several times, but uh, there's nothing I could do about it. So I
Yeah.
just kind of have to move on, and in some ways, it's been freeing because I know I had answers to some of my questions, and I can just answer them again in maybe a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's
but
a
then from
good
then
way
on,
of looking at
I
it.
am a Google Docs slave. I
So
love
That's fair.
Docs.
from conception to like finished product, right? What's that
Mhm.
timeline kind of looking like? I'm always interested in like the behind the scenes of a book.
Yeah, my timeline this for the second book has been pretty interesting just because it's the first time that I'm working with a publishing team on it. So ideally it's about a year. I am going to have a little bit over a year for this one just because of the way some of the deadlines have worked out. So that's been nice because I have some breathing room for it. I had about 5 months from the pitch being accepted to when my first completed draft is due. And then I have now 3 months to rewrite it. And then once that's finished, I'll have another like 2.5 months, 3 months to edit it again. Hopefully, do a couple passes in there with my editor, and then it will go to being an arc, which is slightly terrifying, but that will happen. So typically, in with young adult, you have about a year from pitch to when it needs to be at copy edits, which is the version that arcs are made from, the advanced reader copies. Boys with Sharp Teeth took me about a year and a half from pitch to then when I signed with my editor, and then and my agent, because those happened about like a month apart. And then with my editor, we took another year to edit it, but most of that time was me waiting. So
Yeah.
most of it was me waiting for the edits, and then I would have about a month after I got them to turn them around.
Do you ever get like tired of reading your own writing?
Yes, I go word blind really really easily on screen and don't realize that I have stopped processing the words. So I do print out my book because if it's on paper in front of me, then I'm fine. And I actually really like my own writing, which
That's
is
good.
nice. Yes. So every time that I go back and read, I'm like, oh, this is not bad, which helps. I don't remember my book very well. I don't have a memory for it. So I have to keep very, very detailed outlines as I go through because I won't reach the end and remember what I wrote throughout it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to keep continually build myself an outline in a spreadsheet of what happened because I am not going to remember what happened, which means every single time that I read it, I'm like, oh, that's right. We did this. So that's when my murder wall comes in. Like you're asking if you have the
Yeah.
complex diagram. I make a very complex editing spreadsheet for me to keep track of all the internals, all the externals, all of the side characters, all of those things because I don't naturally remember them very well. So having those structured out for me helps me keep the threads throughout the entire thing.
What is what's your favorite like go to like de-stress from when you're sitting down writing all day? Like what's the one thing you go to that sort of like helps you recenter and
Mm.
decompress?
Well, I typically have to race from writing to picking up my children from school.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's that car ride. And I listen to music in there. I'm a Christian, so I do listen to like worship music and have some prayer time as I go to pick up my kids. And that car ride, having just a moment where I cannot write and
Mhm.
I cannot, um, I don't have anybody else with me, and I'm just
Right.
doing kind of a rote mechanical task is fantastic. And then I'm ready to go with the rest of my mom stuff for the day.
Yeah.
If I don't have that, it's definitely reading. I love reading books. So resetting myself with somebody else's book is a lot of fun, especially if it's really different from mine.
Hmm. I'm really interested because you said that you were a history teacher. What are
Mhm.
some like teacher habits that you have found still carry on into your like being an author?
Comfort with public speaking, yeah, and making a fool of myself is
Hmm.
definitely one of them. When you stand up in front of, because I taught middle school and high school, and
Oh,
so yeah,
rough.
when you stand up in a room full of like 30 some middle schoolers,
Yeah, they're mean.
and
No.
yeah, nothing can hurt you after that.
Yeah.
So that's definitely part of it. Also, just going in every single day is different when you're a teacher. Even if you're teaching the same thing multiple days or multiple years in a row, the kids change everything. And so every day you walk in and your day is different. And that's very true with being a writer too. I think people think that because I walk, to my desk and I write every day, that my days are all the same. But they're not, because I'm either at a very different point in the book, or I'm revising, or I'm in a very different mood in a scene, or I'm doing something like a podcast recording or some other kind of admin work. So the days all feel incredibly different, and being able to roll with whatever I'm doing that day, um, definitely something that I learned from teaching.
Yeah. Never a dull day.
No.
No, never no a dull day. Kayla, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
Let me double check. No,
Okay.
I got everything. I just
Um
needed to double check.
yeah, no, you're good. Okay, so this would normally be the time where you can give your kind of like publicity blurb, your marketing blurb if you have one, like, or you can do it on the fly. Does not matter to us. By the time that this video will be coming out, the book will already be out, given the nature of the episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so feel free, let it fly.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, Boys with Sharp Teeth comes out everywhere that books are sold. It came out on April 8th, and I hope that you enjoy it and that you pick it up.
Definitely
And
pick it up.
your website will be linked down below, and all
Fantastic.
of those things, so they'll
Yeah,
have
if
a
you want to
way
see me
to.
making a fool of myself in public, follow me on socials.
That is what socials are for.
It is. I am unhinged on there sometimes.
Love it. I love it.
It's the best way to be, honestly. No hinges on social ever.
No
No.
hinges.
But this has been another episode of Margin Mavens. Once again, thank you to Jenni Howell for being there with us today. If you have not already, please subscribe to our Instagram, our YouTube, all the socials. We just talked about being unhinged, and we will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.